The Ghost Coat magazine, series of interviews, Zoom, because we can't be in person together at a sweaty club with beers in our hands. Welcomes in Joe from I the Destroyer. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Of course, somehow you are back after just 1 year, basically, less after your last record. You're back with a new EP. The Wolf You Feed is out tomorrow. It's so heavy and so needed at this time. We really need extreme music for extreme times. I know it sounds kind of like a Karate Kid cliche, but it like really is true.
Listen, I will wax on and wax off with you and agree wholeheartedly that extreme music for extreme times is exactly what we
You
need.
can have that catchphrase for free. I won't even charge you. You can
I
have that on. You
appreciate
can
that.
have that for free, buddy. But yeah, man. So, Baptized in Pain came out and it was, widely appreciated and recognized. And then you had some kind of, some issues with the band and some other stuff go on. And now you just kind of soldiered forward, which is, impressive. A lot of bands, don't survive turmoil and, some do, some are made better from it. So I like you don't have to talk about those issues, but I like to hear about the since then up to this EP story.
Well, I mean, Baptized was definitely an experience. I think it was really, it kind of summed up where the band had been at for a long time. We had been working on that record for a while, and there was definitely a lot of outside influences going on, which was good. And as anybody knows, being in a band is hard, man. We were doing like 100 dates a year, like right before, pretty much right before all this COVID stuff had happened. We've been touring a lot, and it gets hard for a lot of guys, man. It's not an easy lifestyle, that's for sure. It's hard to tell your girl, hey, I'm leaving, and it's hard to tell your landlord, hey, I can't pay rent. Um, so with all those things, included, it really put a lot of hardships on the band. But Baptized was a really great record for me personally, because I feel like it enabled me to kind of step into a role that I hadn't had in the band previously. And it allowed me to be a little bit more creative, and I had a little bit more influence on what I wanted the band to sound like, which was an incredible experience overall. And shortly after Baptized was done, I got right to work on this record, because I was in like a creative flow, and I was really going through a lot of stuff, and it would just kind of was pouring out of me. And I had like maybe like 8 or 9 songs that I had been like really kind of like working on in the background and kind of putting together. And I just I really had like kind of like an aha moment that I really wanted to focus on, getting rid of some specific feelings and traumatic experiences that I had gone through in my life. And that's really what this record became about. And, and it was really, it was, I say it often now, but it was really a cleansing for me in so many ways, the new EP.
Thank you for sharing that. Not easy to talk about. It's not easy. I know there's a lot of talk right now in the world about kind of like everybody's feelings. And, I'm a very sensitive guy. Just to be honest, as I get older, I'm more and more sensitive. But also, it's not always easy to discuss these things. I think there's a stigma about people like, oh, he's so thoughtful and he's getting out his emotions in this extreme music. But also, there's we came from a background, the East Coast guys is just very unrelenting, and you're not allowed to have problems.
It's
And
true.
again, that's not talking about toxic masculinity and keeping anybody down. I'm just saying, like, as a guy, sometimes you're not allowed to be sharing your feelings is sometimes a sign of weakness. So I appreciate you. It's
Yeah.
not a sign of weakness,
I
it's
feel
strength.
like without touching on toxic masculinity, for sure, it's just like the stigma kind of is just like, as a man, you're supposed to kind of just bury it down and just like not talk about if it's upsetting you. And I mean, there's so much of that, and it really does create a lot of negativity in the world. I mean, if you just could express yourself and feel comfortable doing so, imagine how much happier you could potentially be.
Indeed. And we should, and it's great that you have this healthy outlet, and we should have healthy outlets to let this stuff out, whether it's throwing axes or throwing back beers or lifting weights or whatever it is, go for a
It's all more
walk.
positive than being angry, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah, of course. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be a shitty person because of that anger. I did something constructive with it.
That's it.
Um, I made music, I made art, I did something else that was positive as out of my bad experience. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And again, if Baptized in Pain was so strong and powerful, this Wolf You Feed is another level, forward, which I really dig, man. It's very focused, very technical, brutal death metal that I really dig. A lot of grooves, stuff that you guys always do excel at. So I like this progression. It's good to show progression, I think, as a band, as you're trying to continue to evolve and get better. Was there anything like in particular you wanted to specifically improve at all in the, like anything in particular?
I think one of the things that was really important to me on this record was to kind of look at it as a whole. Baptized was a collection of songs, for sure. And this was more of start to finish, well thought out. I wanted each song to be where it is on the record. You know what I mean? When listening to it, I wanted it to, like when we come out on Reversed, I wanted to be balls to the wall, punch you right in your face. There was no intro. It was like you put the disc in and it hits you, and that's what I really wanted to happen. I wanted to have a lot more energy on this record. I wanted to have a little bit more of a crossover thrash type of deal going on, because that's really who I am, and it's really how I wanted to express myself musically. And I think we were able to achieve that with the record. I think that we were able to bring a lot more of a high intensity energy and a groove. Of course, I mean, you can't not have, it's, for me, it's you have to, you know what I mean? I can't, there's no record in the world that I'm going to be involved with that's not going to have some element of groove. But I wanted to really be balls to the wall with the energy. I mean, I just wanted to keep that energy up throughout the whole record, and keep it fierce and aggressive and raw.
I dig it, man. There's no break. If it was an album and you had like another five, six, seven songs, you could have a chill one, but or a chill part or an intro. But
Right.
yeah, not in a short release, and it's definitely very impacting, which I dig, of course. Yeah, man. And you talked about thrash, and like I just think in general, again, such a classic sounding East Coast sound to always just be very direct and just be very, hard hitting and impactful. And, we have a great legacy of bands, and you come from this area that has a great legacy of music. So I was going to ask you about like what were the bands that originally inspired you, either local or the whole world, and what music continues to inspire you besides your own.
Well, I would say that early on for me, um, you know, where I grew up, there wasn't a whole lot of metal going on. I was very hip hop influenced. I mean, through most of my childhood, I was extremely into hip hop. I mean, me and my sister would sit down, we would listen to Hot 97, and when DOS Effects would come out and they would, they had their little demo or whatever, my job was to hit record, and like I had to grab the hot shit, otherwise she was pissed. She was not having it any other way. Like, if I fucked up and I didn't catch that Naughty by Nature verse, like something bad was going to happen to me, So that was what the 90s were about for me. And, as that kind of progressed, I got into, I mean, I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey. And if you're from Elizabeth, New Jersey, it's really difficult to not talk about E-Town Concrete. It's difficult to not talk about NJ Bloodline. I mean, these are the bands that, really impacted me. Earlier on, like when we first started jamming, we were lucky enough to be in the same studio with NJ Bloodline and E-Town. Bands like Agents of Man, other bands that were just big in this area, that were just really doing it, One for One. Guys like that were just like, it had a huge impression on me. And the first show I ever went to, first hardcore show I ever went to, I was invited by Reek, who actually just passed away. R.I.P. Rest in power. What a great guy.
Mm.
He invited me to a show, and he was like, "Look, this is our last show. You gotta come." It was around the block from where our studio was. The secret headliner was E-Town Concrete. The first band that played was Shattered Realm. I mean, this is how I got my introduction. I mean, you don't get introduced to hardcore like that. That's just that was almost abusive to be invited to something like that. I mean, it really just spun me and threw me for a total fucking loop, and it just kind of made me think to myself, this is what I want to do. I felt at home, and I felt like I finally had an outlet for my anger, my aggression, and those are the bands that really inspired me. E-Town, Shattered Realm, definitely 100%. Those guys were a huge inspiration for me. Um, But yeah, E-Town Concrete, NJ Bloodline, Shattered Realm. If you want to get into the bigger bands, probably like Hatebreed, Slipknot. You know, those bands were big for me. Even Fear Factory was big for me in like the early 2000s. You know, the elements of hip hop, man, were everything for me. You know, if you had that hip hop element, I chances are I got into you pretty quickly. You know, it's
Yeah,
just
man.
I identified with it so much. You know,
Word. New metal is not a crime, man. I love a lot of new metal, and I came from the Bronx, very similar to where you are. Hip hop,
if
hardcore
you
metal.
meddle with a crime, bro, I am guilty as charged. You know what I'm saying?
For real, for real. And I'm glad you had that connection with your sister. That's really cool. And yeah, I always talked about the similarities between hip hop and hardcore, particularly, and even thrash. Just there's, I mean, I feel like a lot of early hardcore, like New York hardcore and East Coast hardcore, Boston, New York, wherever, definitely borrowed like beats from hip hop and
Yeah.
sentiment, street sentiments from hip hop. And I used to play in a band, and my dude was like, "Dude, do you think they listen to like rap?" And I was like, no, but the Cro-Mags did.
Yeah.
You know, like John Joseph did, Mackie Jason did, Harley Flanagan did, like Sick of It All did,
I
Agnostic
mean,
Front did, Vinny
even
did, they
bands
all
like
did.
you look at Biohazard, who had songs with Onyx. You know what I
Word.
mean? You look at you want to go even further back. I mean, look at what Anthrax did with Public Enemy. I mean,
Word.
this is the kind of stuff that just like it bridged a gap for kids like me who were like super into DOS effects and Big L and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, you know, you had like Hatebreed who was playing like these Diddy Bop breakdowns, and I was like, what is going on here? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? This is what I wanted, you know, like this is the aggression and the outlet that I really needed, you know, and I just identified
Word.
with it so much.
I, I always laugh. I think there's an element of kind of like no disrespect, but there's definitely an element of like ignorant knucklehead hardcore dudes, and I say that with love, who don't understand that like the hardcore breakdown kind of comes from a breakbeat in rap in
Oh,
like
100.
1980. It literally comes from rap, and they would like be upset if you told them that. Just like I know death metal guys don't want to hear that death metal vocals are really rapping, kind
Yeah.
of. And I always be like, oh, you know who my favorite rapper is Tom Araya, or or and they get like, oh, and I'm like, listen, man, he wouldn't say, he would be like, oh, it's rhythmic, not melodic, in time to the beat or not, verbosity, verbosity, lyrics, spitting
It's
lyrics, fire,
it's
man.
all
That's
it's all rhythmically driven and
right.
drum. You know what I mean? It's all based on drums. You know, I mean, even Lombardo's grooves, like early Slayer stuff, Lombardo's grooves.
Whew.
I mean, he played as fast as anybody, but like when he didn't, he played grooves. I mean, those
Yeah.
grooves were intense. And if you want to hear great grooves, go listen to anything on South of Heaven. He's gonna blow your mind. Live Undead is unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable drum.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's incredible. And it's
Funny
very
that
influenced, Latin influenced, you know?
super, super. And funny that you mentioned, I think we're doing this interview tomorrow is the 30th anniversary of Seasons in the Abyss. So we have a big feature coming up on that. So I'm super pumped. But yeah, man, it's awesome to hear that background, and it's not uncommon. E-Town, Biohazard, we share very similar. I seen E-Town a jillion times. Rest in peace to Reek. I was a big Bloodline fan, and I saw them a lot on their comeback because I was going to much more thrash and death metal shows in the 90s, and I really like missed their real early glory days, and then I caught them on the reunion stuff a lot.
Yeah.
And they were such a great band, and he was such a really just purely good dude and a scene dude. And I know his loss, he died, like passed at the same time as Riley, and it kind of got overshadowed a little, but like in the press, but like Bloodline's a great band. People should check them out. Thank you for giving them a shout out. I'll make sure to tag them.
Yeah.
And we
Good.
shared the GoFundMe for his family, and just
Yeah.
what a tragedy, what a loss in terms of a regional dude and a great scene dude. And that's life. Life keeps taking. That's what I keep saying. 2020 is the year that keeps taking. But we got to keep making it. So I appreciate that like I know this. I said this to people. There's a lot of bands that said, "Oh, like I can't put out a record in this environment. I'm gonna wait." No disrespect, because money and success and timing and all luck and magic and all these things that make a music career, it's really hard, as you talked about at the top. So respect that you are still putting this EP out. Hopefully we can start having some shows. I know people are doing like socially distanced things. for metal and hardcore is not as easy, or even it's just like I don't know what that looks like. The last show I went to in early March was Soulfly and Toxic Holocaust at St. Vitus, and it was two sold out shows in a row. And I was there the second night, and we were like, I was literally in the last possible quarter of the club, squished against the wall with my camera. And like that's I don't want it any other way, but I'm so sad without shows. Also, it's like, oh man, I would just what I would do for a show right now, I can't tell you. It's probably something heinous and
You know,
horrible.
I'm kind of hoping, and I feel like there is a silver lining here where people really did start to take live performances for granted, and you
Mm.
saw attendance go down and things like that. Like, I know when I was a kid, bro, like you would go to a hardcore show, there'd be 500 people there. You know what I mean? Now it's like with Soulfly as a headliner, sure, you can pack out St. Vitus, but like One for One used to pack out City Gardens. I mean, there's videos. So it's like with crazy amounts of people there, So it's like I'm kind of hoping that kind of comes back, once people get the opportunity to go out and enjoy themselves again, that maybe, the days of watching the show on YouTube, maybe they're gone. Maybe that live experience comes back, And I feel like everything is cyclical, and it will come back because that's just the way it goes. You know what I mean? Everything just goes kind of around and around. But to speak to loss and stuff like that, like it's been a crazy year. I've lost my grandfather this year to COVID, actually, and I
Mm.
mean, he was a huge inspiration for me my whole life. He was a hero. He's a firefighter, and it was a hard thing, and it is hard to put out a record, and it's hard to focus on anything other than the amount of negativity and the deaths and all the other things that are coming along with life right now. But I think we're going to embark on something that's pretty cool. I kind of wanted to talk about it. I'm really throwing it around, and by saying it, maybe I'm kind of fucking myself into doing it a little bit. But I think we may be doing 12 songs over the course of a year, like once a month, starting in January and working my way all the way to next January, and trying to stay not only relevant but trying to stay active and creative and keep my mind off of the craziness that the world is providing.
That's a killer idea. I back that fully. I look at the success Acacia Strain just had with a similar, not exactly, but a similar kind of thing where they rolled out. It was actually like a little like a treasure hunt or a puzzle. Like, what is this album? What does this thing spell? What are they doing? They're putting out like two songs and one song and two songs and a video and a teaser and a thing. And like, it was really cool. It was really creative. And people still bought the record when they finally put the record out with some bonus stuff, another couple of
Right.
songs. They did collabos. The one bonus, the blessing of this terrible pandemic is the technology. It doesn't necessarily bring us closer together, but it definitely makes us more efficient at working together. And I
Sure.
feel like guys like you and I, when we started, collabos were so rare, except for like, Judgment Night soundtrack, like you talked about
Of
Biohazard and
course.
Onyx,
But you
but
had to
like
get in the studio with a guy.
right, Anthrax, Public Enemy had to be done with lawyers. I'm sure they were on the same label, which helped, but like
Right.
not quite the same label, but like they had allies. And
Subsidiary nature.
yeah,
Yeah.
subsidiaries. Yeah, but it was harder. And now it's kind of like, oh, you know what? Whatever, go be on their album. And so,
Right.
that's really cool. So I'm super excited to hear about that. I hope you follow through, and I hope you can do it.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for you, and that's a great idea. And again, anybody that wants to check out Slow Decay, the Acacia Strain, one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
I used to live in New England, just knucklehead throat punch motherfuckers
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
pit, and I was always like, don't hit me, I'm too old to get punched anymore. I did plenty of getting like punched out at like All Out War and Irate and the old school,
I,
Bronx
now,
deathcore.
now you're just bringing up like mainline influences for me. I mean,
Yeah.
War and Irate. I mean, as far as metal bands are concerned, or metallic hardcore bands, whatever you want to call them. I
Right.
mean, those two are the kings, as far as I'm concerned. If you wanted
Sure.
my opinion, I mean, like All That War consistently still drops records that are incredibly hard.
They just
Um,
did. They
the
just
the
did.
singer the singer for Irate is now putting out new music, I think, with his son, from what I saw, which I thought was extraordinarily interesting. And I mean, that record, like Gone, I think for me, that song in particular, I don't know if there is a better a better song in terms of groove and just overall anger. man, that guy could project some anger, man. It was great. It really was
Yeah.
great.
I legitimately got knocked out cold at All Out War. I raid at Coney Island High. I had
Oh
to get
shit.
dragged. I was like bigger than I am now with long ass hair, and I had to get dragged out by my friends. I literally was seeing Tweety Birds, and that was the sickest show I've ever seen. And being a Bronx guy, I love Irate, of course, and just in general, those are good times, and they're still good times.
Yeah.
I see a lot of life in the music scene. I see really surprising, great albums from extreme bands, and hardcore is never going to die. It's never going away. The
No.
classic bands stay relevant, which is really impressive. And there's always good new bands, and or bands that maybe they're not hardcore, but they have that spirit, like Fit for an
Yeah.
Autopsy, other dudes we like, just like
Well,
very built.
I would say, especially in the case of Fit for an Autopsy. Like Pat is about as hardcore as it gets. Maybe a lot of people don't know where his roots are, but Nothing Left to Mourn was like probably one of the best hardcore bands to come out of New Jersey. Second to like a Shattered Realm. They were right there. They were right there. And Will was involved in that project as well. And is responsible
Was
probably for, you know, every bit of relevant hardcore that comes out nowadays.
right.
So, you can't discount those. The roots are so deep, you know what I mean? They're just so deep. And whether you're playing metal or death metal or whatever, you're influenced by a hardcore band in some way, shape, or form. You just are.
I've always said that. And even though I wasn't a traditional hardcore kid, I've always been just like a friend. I've always been an admirer. One of my first real club shows ever was a hardcore matinee. And the respect has always been there, and the roots have always been there. And I've met many great hardcore times and many friends in the scene and bands. And respect. Just like I wish the thrash scene had that kind of love, because it was always very competitive and shitty, and we used to undercut each other really bad. And the death metal thing was a whole nother thing, and the black metal and sort of black and death metal guys were like, the NYDM guys were a whole other clique, and not
Right.
like, what do you do, thrash? Fuck out of here. And
Yeah.
get your ass stomped, get stomped out at a show potentially because you just were not them. And I
Right.
love them, love those guys. Some of my best friends ever are NYDM people. um but yeah, just New York and the whole East Coast is very cliquey for a long time.
Sure.
And but now everybody's cool. I remember when it changed over. I think you were probably old enough to remember there was a period of time where you could not mix hardcore metal dudes, and then the next year we were all for brothers. But for me, there was a period of
No,
time if you had the wrong shirt on, you would get a knuckle sandwich.
when I was coming up as a kid, we're talking early 2000s. I used to hang out at Birch Hill, at
Dude,
nightclub Old Bridge. All right. And
yeah, and I love it.
the one thing I loved about Birch Hill was it really was a melting pot. You could experience all sorts of things, whether it was, the dudes in Fury of Five showing up to a Fear Factory show and getting the experience of like, drunken metal guy versus hardcore kid from Asbury Park. Those are experiences you can't get those the same way you used to. But so that's kind of where I came up, was a huge melting pot. And in the mid 2000s, things had gotten to be very clicky, and I kind of went away for a little while. And when I came back, like 2012, 2013, I had noticed this like drastic change of like almost like acceptance overall, where like you could kind of be from wherever you wanted to be from, and everybody was kind of together. And that was happening in what was the death metal scene for me. And it was very cool to experience, because when I had left, it was very much the way you say. If you were into hardcore, you were into hardcore. If you were into metal, you stayed the fuck away from people who were into hardcore, because you guys just weren't into the same shit. And it was understood that you weren't going to get along, even if you did, but it was understood that that was not to be mixed. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it's funny. It's weird how that goes.
yeah, and I do feel like some of the more senior leadership type bands made it cool,
Yeah.
bridged us together. And I definitely remember the first punk show or hardcore show I went to after we were all cool, and it was AF, and I remember that everybody was cool, and I wasn't scared because I was kind
Right.
of scared. I was like, I'm a roly poly long hair metal dude with a metallic. Like, I went to my first hardcore show, and my dudes were all hardcore guys, like white t-shirts and rolled up jeans, and I was like sweatshirt and Justice for All t-shirt, long hair, and they were like, okay, Keefe, hair under the Yankee hat, hoodie up, pull tight. Do not fucking let anyone see that fucking justice statue on your shirt. You will get punched in the face. I was like, you want to get punched in the face today? I was like, no, I just want to see some good music. Stay in the corner, don't headbang, and just enjoy yourself and watch everybody and just chill. And I was like, word. And you know
Yep.
what? I got a brotherhood out of it. I love music and I love heavy music. And I feel like heavy music is for everybody. It just took a long time for us to be cool. You know, it was that like right,
Yep.
that pre-period of time, like probably right before Biohazard and right before everybody else really took off. But you know, we had a lot of unforgettable times. I do feel like you guys are the, you know, the sons or the children of that era, and I really appreciate it. This EP is killer, man, and I'm really proud of you and congrats. And you know, I hope we get our shit back and we can go do this. And, you know, we were supposed to do this in person a couple of times and we didn't get to. And opportunity is, like I said, technology can be a blessing or a curse, but I appreciate getting to talk to you here on Zoom and hopefully eventually again in a club at the front of the stage or downstairs in the basement with a beer like we should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I would love to have had this conversation in a smoke-filled St. Vitus basement. And I'm sorry that we haven't, but I'm sure that we will at some point, and I'm hopeful that we will. And I can't thank you enough for constantly covering the band. You've always been supportive of the band. I mean, for a very long time, and I just can't thank you enough for that, man. It means the world to me. And you know, without guys like you covering us, you know, we're doing it for purely ourselves because no one else is hearing us, and no one else is getting us exposure the way that you guys do. And it's a very hard job, and I very much appreciate the work that you do. And I know you do it out of the pure passion and love for the music, and that speaks volumes to the type of guy that you are. To have been in it as long as you have, and to be still doing it and still loving it the same way that you do, it's fucking awesome. And you know, thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, man. I'm probably blushing now, but I will say one thing to quote one of my writing mentors: "Old band dudes don't go to heaven or hell; they become journalists." So anyway, that's kind of what happened here. And although I was kind of a writer at the same time, I was in bands too. But yeah, man, congrats. Keep your head up. I'm very sorry for your losses, but at least we have this new music to look forward to, and you know, just keep your head up and keep fighting and stay strong,
Thank you.
and we'll keep we'll
Thank
keep
you.
we'll keep getting out there and getting after it. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate it.